nagani indígena casa nagachi wanong nujaba. Because you do them. First of all, I'd like to say thank you and good morning, Chairman McCollum and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Kevin DuPuis Sr. I'm the chairman of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. I have submitted written testimony for the record and discussed in many areas where increase in federal funding is needed. Today, however, I'd like to focus on importance of federal funding for Indian Health Service and Indian health care programs. One thing I'd like to start off with is I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody anything any different that everybody has already said, the disparities that we have in Indian country throughout Indian country. But what I would like to do, since my written testimony is in there, I want to kind of go off it a little bit, and I want to talk about the reality of what's happened within Indian country. Not by what's on a piece of paper, but by testimony from me. I'd like to start off with the opiate problem. It's an epidemic. Last time I testified, I brought up a scenario, and I'd like to do it again for the ones who weren't here before. I watched a video one time, and the video showed a group of Native kids in a home. And what they did, they were having an opium party. Never heard of it before. A heroin party, excuse me. Never heard of it before. So they brought in ice, and they filled up the bathtub. But they also brought in Narcan. And what they were doing is taking heroin. And when somebody would go out, they'd give them Narcan. And to shock them out of it, they'd put them in the ice in the shower. That's what's happening in Indian country. That's what's happening in our communities. Our people are dying. Our people are dying in a rate that it's unfathomable. We grow up and we're taught things to never forget who we are and where we come from. And to respect our elders and the ones and our ancestors that came before us, and to put in place a job that we're supposed to do today to ensure that there's a future for our unborn. It's hard to do that sometimes with the issues that are happening. We do have problems on our own reservation. We do have a water issue that's on our own reservation, where we have bad water in one of our communities. And looking for funding to support that instead of digging into our coffers to do that with the lack of funding that everybody knows that exists in Indian country. We had people, Native people in front of you earlier that talked about the issues in urban areas. Well, we have a thing in Minnesota called Tent City that was in Minneapolis. And I observed it, went there many, many times to watch homeless people, drug epidemic, drug addiction, sexual issues, prostitution, everything that you could think of. And it's in a healthcare. It is based in a healthcare issue. So we met in St. Paul, and we had a meeting of all the tribes to address the opiate crisis and the problem. We had all our funding mechanisms were in the same room. So I asked everybody that day, does everybody here work on tabletop exercises? And they said, yeah. I said, well, there's one 11 miles away. So if you want to have a true tabletop exercise, put everything down today, go into Minneapolis, take a look at it, see the medical crisis that exists in a street next to the highway. Mm-hmm. And everybody just put their head down. So these are people that we're asking funding from, that were in the room. And it makes my heart sick and hurt to know that the same people that were coming in front and asking for funding that were on the table. And when we asked them to come over there, I asked them to come over there to take a very good look at it and see exactly what's happening. If you can address that issue, if you can work on that issue right there, then we can run across the country and Indian country and work on every one of them that were there. But to no avail, they just put their heads down. So I go home every day and I have to report back to constituents and tell them how it went in D.C. I don't know how it's going to go in D.C. All I can do is speak from my heart and the written testimony that's there. But we go home to these things, and we go home to them every day. I can't speak for any other group of people, but I can only speak for the indigenous people of this land. The funding has never been adequate, and everybody knows that. It will never be adequate. But one thing that we can sit there and be proud of is knowing that we know how to stretch the dollar. If one group of people on this planet knows how to stretch the dollar, it's us. But we're stretching to a point where we can't stretch it anymore. I want to bring these things forward, and so it's a face-to-face thing that you can see that it hurts. It hurts all of us. Our people are dying. People are dying in a manner that we can't control. And every time one of our children die or a person dies, when we look at the 7-generation principle, that's 7 generations that are never going to make it. That's sad. It's really, really sad. But I do know that you guys listen, and I understand, and I talk with Ms. McCollum, that her drive in the state of Minnesota and what she tries to do is it's hard to explain, except it's impeccable. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody on this committee. But I do want to bring this to this committee to ask for the simple principle of help. Not through a piece of paper, because we do that all the time, but to hear us and listen to us what we're saying. And some are going to sit here and some are going to repeat what somebody else has said. But you need to hear the stories of what are happening. You need to hear the truth. If you can see these videos and if you can hear the truth and see the truth, and this data that exists, and questions that were asked earlier, I need to bring it up, is that the tribes have the ability to do something that hasn't been done before, and that's taking in and helping the urban communities in this way, is to open up clinics inside the urban area. We have done it. We've opened up a pharmacy 200 miles away from our reservation, where we serve all Native people. And we can collectively do that and come to an agreement that this is what we need to do for our people. We'll be able to strive. So with that, and I know I'm out of time, so again, thank you very much. Miigwech.